Good morning. Welcome to Christ Church Live. It's our weekly interview series. I'm your host, Father Michael Tinnen, Interim Rector at Christ Church. And today I have the privilege of interviewing Mr. Paul Laedlein, Senior Warden here at Christ Church. Just a couple notes of interest. The video will stream live tomorrow, June 5th. And we would like to invite all of our viewers to engage with us. So you can offer comments in the comments section on the sidebar. We'd love to hear from you. Paul, it's great to have you with us today. Thanks for coming. I know as Senior Warden, you certainly have a lot on your plate and a lot of moving parts, and it's a dynamic role for you. So tell us a little bit, first of all, what's going on with you? How's life? How are you adapting to everything?
Well, thank you, Father Mike, for inviting me. I'm pleased to be here. I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. Keeping busy and no time to get bored, and that's good. As maybe some people aren't aware, my wife Karen is back on the East Coast in Washington D.C. with our daughter Jay, who's undergoing some chemotherapy right now. So
right.
They're back there. I've got my grand dog Ollie, courtesy of son and daughter-in-law up in Glendale, who left a little fellow with me to keep me company. So I've got so I'm not alone. No, I'm doing fine.
Yeah, that's good. I know Karen's been in DC with Jay, and it's been an ongoing process for several weeks now. And our continued thoughts and prayers for you and your family, especially Jay, as she undergoes this process. It sounded promising, what you were able to share with me the last few times we spoke. And I'm glad that she's making progress. And we'll continue to lift Jay and you and Karen in our thoughts and prayers. And you have a wonderful church family. So if you need anything, you have many hearts here who are willing to step up and help the Laedlein. So let you know that. I think you know that anyway. You know most of our wonderful people. I was thinking last night before this interview, I was thinking that many of our people may not be aware of the time of transition that we're in right now. I think they know we're in transition, but they don't really know your role as Senior Warden and all that entails. I'm not sure they understand. I'm the interim rector. You are actually the ecclesiastical authority of the church. So whenever an Episcopal church is in transition, the Senior Warden assumes that role of ecclesiastical authority. Would you tell our people a little bit about what that might mean for them?
Sure. I didn't realize that either until Reverend Ann left. But you're right. Technically, literally, I'm the ecclesiastical head of the church. I think, thank goodness, I've been blessed to have you, Father Mike, as a wonderful interim. And I know what you contribute to us is above and beyond what you're really required to contribute. And I deeply appreciate that, as well as Deacon Tom. And in the wings, we've got Matt Collins to help out as well. Yeah. So I think that's a literal sense. In a practical sense, what I found is it's sort of the business of the church, the administration of the church, is what I get most involved in. If listeners might not realize that our church, Christ Church, is an incorporated unit legally. It's a corporation. And it has a board of directors, which is the vestry, of course, which I head, and all the committees of the church, the service committees, the finance committee, the investment committee, the altar guild, all of thrift shop, all of those standing committees fall under the vestry. And we also have, right now in this period, we've got 3 large ad hoc committees that I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. But so we've got the call committee. For one, we've got the Christ Church School School Board, which is a committee under the vestry. And then just recently, in the last 2 weeks, we put a working group or a task force together to plan how we will resume in-person worship as we go forward. So that all falls underneath, and right. I guess that could be a burden, all of that responsibility. But I'll be honest with you, I don't feel a burden. I don't feel a burden. I really don't. But there are so many good people and strong people in our church family, people that are willing to dedicate their time and their talent and
Right.
their experience and step up to do whatever has to be done, that we're to share that lifting. It's quite the opposite. I feel exhilarated. I feel excited about this. You know, it's not an easy time. It's a challenge, but if I can, you know, one of my favorite sayings, I think C.S. Lewis, and I'll quote him badly, but I think to paraphrase him, he said, it's the challenges in life and the suffering that we sometimes have to face that causes us to seek the Lord. And in seeking the Lord, you find him. And I always find that true. So I really mean that. I think it's exhilarating, it's exciting, and as I've told you before, I've come to really feel as though this is exactly where I should be right now at this time. I actually feel called to do this.
Yeah, and I think that always makes all the difference in the world when we sense the Lord's hand upon us and calling us to a specific ministry. I know that, you know, just from my ability to watch you in action as the senior warden and just a friend and a colleague and one who cares about the church deeply, I know that your leadership skills are really what the church needed at this point in time and transition. You have a heart to reach out to people to see that the church moves forward in a good way. It's never about Paul Laedlein. It's always about the good of the church, God's will for our church. And so I find that quite remarkable. I know you're wearing several hats and you're juggling a lot of plates. I remember that illustration of the guy trying to spin the plates and keep them going. And sometimes I know that we're all sort of in that position. So I usually ask our guest a question, you know, and it's more of a personal question. How are you staying physically, mentally, spiritually fit, juggling all those plates and wearing all those hats?
I'm doing well in that department too. I'm an avid cyclist. I've done a lot of riding, a lot of touring, and really loved it. And then about 2.5 years ago, I fell badly broke my neck to the point where it's a bit miraculous that I'm even here and walking around and doing all that. But what that means, I can never get on a bicycle again because I can't take the risk of falling. So what I did, I replaced that with I went and spent a little money and bought a really nice stationary bike. Some of these things are amazing now.
Yeah.
They have one I've got has a video screen in the front.
Yeah.
It's got a computer on board. As soon as I turn it on, it connects to the internet, goes to its site, downloads any workouts that I want, video workouts.
Yeah.
So, and then as I ride, the bike actually changes inclination if you're going up a hill or down a hill. It's not the real thing, but it's keeping me fit. And I'm able to do that 4 or 5 times a week now because I'm home, of course. So I do that. I was riding into Paris about 2 days ago on the Champs-Élysées, which was nice, and riding in the Alps. That's it. Mentally, I'm doing a lot of reading. I'm reading just to mention Ron Chernow's book Grant. People have heard of that. It's quite popular. It's a 1,000-page read. It's quite a heavy read. And but I've always I never knew much about Grant. I always liked the Civil War, so I read the Civil War part, and the second half is his presidency. But the thing I'm finding is kind of intriguing for me is some of the similarities between what he went through and that particular period of time in American history when the country was literally divided. And how he, as a leader, a military leader, and then a political leader, what he did to influence that. It's very interesting, I think, thing. So that keeps me, again, mentally stimulated. Spiritually, I think I feel like, as I said before, I feel called to do this. I think my faith is increasing. I get a great deal of strength and refreshment from our Tuesday morning men's Bible study at 6:30 as a group of guys that have been together. I'm the new guy in the group. Some of these guys have been doing this for 14 or 15 years. And we look at the readings for the coming week. And I find that when we do that, when you study those readings, and I've felt this for a long time, it's if you just go to church and listen to the readings, and that's the first time you're hearing them, you get some of that, and a lot of it goes over your head. And but when you're able to sit down like that with a group of people and kind of chew on it and hash it out and figure out where is the common thread, what is the message that comes through the scripture. I think when you do that, I understand it a lot better and really hear the word of God much clearer than just going into it. So that I find that encouraging, refreshing, and uplifting at the same time. So that's that keeps my spirit right.
You know, it's tough, I know, because there's so many things pulling us in different directions, you know, in this time of pandemic and time of civil unrest in our nation. We certainly see and experience a lot of things, whether it's on television or in the streets of San Diego. And as I contemplate that, the other night I went out for a run and came back toward the house. Of course, I was masked, and all of a sudden I was surrounded by hundreds of protesters, you know, and it kind of caught me off guard as I just tried to contemplate and reflect on all that's going on in our country. I read that book you're talking about. It's a wonderful book. It certainly talks about division, you know, and we experience that. And no one's exempt from these issues, these crises. And yet, I think, you know, as a church, as leaders in the church, as believers in Christ our Lord, we're obligated to do something, to stand up and make a difference in this critical time. And I think the Episcopal Church is really on the cutting edge of doing that, and I'm proud to be a part of that. But it's not just the church; it's all of us individually, you know. And so you triggered that thought when you were talking about President Grant and some common similarities of what's going on in our world. Well, I know, you know, I know a lot of our people are certainly interested in several things that are happening at Christ Church. Of course, 2 or 3 of those are our school, the CCDS, the reopening of the school, the status of the school, our church as we plan and prepare, hopefully, to return to in-person worship at some point. And I know you have some insights on that, and I'd like you, maybe we just start with the school. You could kind of share some insights with what's happening in the school and let people, we get calls all the time, emails, you know, what's going on with the school? When are we opening for worship again? And, you know, a lot of those answers we don't have. And so we try to bring in the experts, you know, either the bishop or our senior wardens to kind of let us know what's happening. So if you could shed some insights on that, I know we'd all appreciate it.
Sure. That was our school is a very, very special part of Christ Church, and it's really our primary outreach in the community here. It's also the very last Episcopal day school left in the diocese, of an original 5 or 6 perhaps that we had at one point, and this is the very last one. It's been around for 62 years, and it's had its ups and downs. There are a couple of things affecting the school right now that people probably should be aware of. One is that there's declining enrollment, and this is not just our school. All the schools on Coronado and in San Diego in general, and the public schools in Coronado, all experiencing a declining enrollment as a percentage of full-time residents gets smaller and more second home residents here. Yeah. And that affects us because about 90% of the day school budget is the tuition from enrollment. And then there are other contributors. The thrift shop is extremely generous with the day school. Mm-hmm. And they normally hold a gala that raises money that helps with financial aid, and they get by that way. Unfortunately, this year it was a real sucker punch with the pandemic because the gala had to be canceled. The thrift shop is now closed, and so something that the school board and the vestry have been working closely on and kind of wrestling with is how to continue the school into the future. And a lot of people may not realize that the budget for the school is about twice the budget for the church. It costs a lot of money to run a school, especially 8 grade levels like that. So we asked, back in August, asked the board to develop not a 5-year plan, but a 2-year plan. Tell us how we get the day school through the next 2 years. And they came up with, and then part of that was going to be give us the option, show us what it would look like if we couldn't get the enrollment to support the budget. And the fact of the matter is that the church is not really in a position to bail the school out if they fall short. And we were looking, original projections, looking at about $250,000 shortage for next year. So we've been kind of, as I say, wrestling with that. And the school board, another great group of dedicated people, and excellent leadership. And Jamie Glorio has been doing yeoman work on the budget along with Glover to work out the budget. And Jamie came up with the proposed budget. It got through the school board last week. Yesterday afternoon, the vestry met in special session and approved that budget. So the school will open next year. We will have school next year. But with the pandemic, and we don't know what the future brings. You never know. I mean, if we had a resurgence in the fall, that might affect our enrollment. We've been doing distance learning since March, I think. And to be honest, and this is the distance learning that we're providing at Christ Church Day School is it's superior to what the public schools are able to do.
Right.
Teachers are actually working harder now than they were when they were in classrooms, because they're preparing materials that parents come and pick up and take home. They're recording teaching sessions. They're checking on their kids every day. They're doing a lot of that, but it's not like the real thing. And so we'll see. We're very, very hopeful for the future. And like I say, we got the faith in the Lord, and the creek don't rise. We'll see it through. But nobody wants to see the day school fail. And when we did the survey of the parish to produce the parish profile, the numbers we got back showed that 90% of the parish feels that it's an important part of our mission. So we're all behind it.
Sure. It has such a wonderful reputation in the community and beyond, actually. And what a great staff with Nancy Funk as the head of school, Carlin, the teachers, great teachers that have great compassionate hearts to teach and to educate and to produce good citizens. So yeah, everywhere I go in Coronado, that's one of the focal points is the school and the history that it's had and shared in the community. Well, I think
I throw in a quick pitch.
Yeah.
One of the things the school is doing, it started this spring, a financial aid drive to try to assist in the area of financial aid. Another thing that affected a number of our parents is if there are two parents working and one of them's lost their job, have been laid off, and we have some families, young military families that are here living in the community that want a Christian education for their kids, but they can't pay the full amount. And so we're seeing our financial aid requests go up. So we're reaching out to the parish. And I think Christy sent a letter out to all parishioners about that. But I would encourage people, to the extent that they can, if they feel they should support the school, then they can go online on the church website or the school website and donate what you're able to help the school out.
Yeah, it's certainly worth noting. It's a worthy cause, and I often remember the quote: "No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care." And sometimes our caring is demonstrated in giving financial support to agencies and entities, and the school certainly merits that. It's such a vibrant outreach ministry of Christ Church, and so we will certainly keep our hearts in tune with the Lord and offer our thoughts and prayers for the future, for all the staff actually, because we know they're going through difficult times as well. It's hard to know that, hey, this may end at some point. You have a position of leadership or a calling in life, and then we've seen that so much since the pandemic. Businesses closing down, people furloughed, unemployment rates so high, and a lot of our citizens in Coronado depend on the school, and so we certainly want to do everything we can. Well, and another topic of interest to a lot of people is, when are we going to go back to church physically and see one another and be able to hug one another and hear great sermons sometimes, and hear great music. I know you have some insights onto that. You talked about ad hoc groups and the working group that you put together with Bob Ketz. So yeah, help us out.
Okay. Yeah. About 2 weeks ago, I asked Bob Ketz to head the working group, or to begin planning for how we're going to do this. How are we going to open up? And he's got another group of people that we just had to ask, and they all stepped up. So we've got good expertise on that group, including 3 healthcare professionals, and John Sturgis, who's our property manager anyway. So we headed in the right direction. They went right to work and jumped in with both feet. It's going to be a process, and we've got guidance that we've got to follow starting with the county. The state of California has guidance. We're getting guidance from Bishop Susan and the Diocese of San Diego, all of which on how to do this and to do it safely. And the priority has to be health and safety, and people have to understand it. We're not going to rush into this. We're going to do this in a deliberate fashion to keep people safe. The target date I put is it was 21 June. That was Bishop Susan's desire to go up, not hard and fast, but 21 June. And also at the special session of the vestry yesterday, Bob gave us a briefing on it, and we all gave him a thumbs up and approval to proceed and finish his plan, which he expects by early next week to have a more definitive plan, which the vestry can pass, and then we'll move forward. That we have to take into account all the social distancing. We have to take into account probably masks. We have to check people as they come onto the property. We are going to be limited by the state, 25% of our congregation. Yeah, so that's a maximum of 50. John Sturgis looked at the courtyard, because we're going to start. That's another part of the thing. We're going to start with an outside service. And see how it goes, and get our feet on the ground there before we start moving inside the church. That's a much more complicated thing to do. We can get probably 40 congregants in, and the plan right now is to start with an evening prayer service, on afternoon evening prayer service on either Saturday or Sunday, and they're working on that right now. We were also going to continue the present YouTube service, the pre-recorded service, as we do now, because there are things you can do in that service, and that has gotten, I think, just gets better by leaps and bounds every week. And there are things we can do on that service, such as singing, that we will not be able to do even outside. If you have a soloist singing, and it's all we could have. We can't have the collected choir, but even a soloist has to be 30 feet away from the nearest person. And also the congregation won't be singing. So it's going to be much different. And one of my big concerns is that a lot of people we have to understand that. A lot of people may expect that you open the doors on the 21st and we go back to normal, and with the hugging and sitting next to each other and singing out loud and all of that. And it can't be like that yet. We need to start slowly, and we will, as we move into the other phases, we're just still in phase 2 as far as the pandemic response statewide. As phase 3 involves larger gatherings. And I think as we go along, things go well. Then a lot of these restrictions will be relaxed somewhat, and then we can begin to improve on what we can do. But we have to. So when Bob's plan comes out and we get there, the very next thing we're going to start to do is try to prepare the congregation to understand what this is going to be like, at least at first. And Here's another aspect of it is Bishop Susan discourages, although she can't, not prohibiting, but she's discouraging people over 65
Right.
or people with underlying medical conditions or weakened immune systems from attending in-person worship at the present time.
Right.
And that's got to be a personal decision.
Yeah.
But we need to do a lot of preparation just to get people ready for what to expect.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
that's where we are.
Just looking at it on the surface, you think, well, I think we'll be able to go, as you said, and go back and hug and, just be together in one community of faith. But everything that I'm reading and seeing suggests otherwise, that it's going to be very difficult to go back to what we once knew in worship. It's going to take months, several months before we can even get to that point. And who knows what will be in place at that time. It's going to be disappointing for some of our people who think it's just going to resume normal, and it's not. It's going to be hard. And so it's good that we're still continuing to offer the live stream service, because we've reached so many people through that venue. We actually have people worshiping with Christ Church on Sunday from all over the country. So it's really wonderful. And that's an element of the church that's been missing for a long time, is how do we reach these people who can't physically come to church? And we have, as you know, Paul, we have several in our church that it's physically, it's debilitating to try to get up and come to church. And so what we offer through that venue is really wonderful. And all the credit to that live stream goes to Charlotte. She's such a gifted person. She keeps Deacon Tom and I out of trouble with computers and technology, which is a full-time job for her, actually. She should get a raise in salary, actually. But we have a wonderful staff. And whatever we do, as long as we know we're planning and preparing to keep people safe and to protect them and to make sure that we're following all the rules and regulations that are being set before us with the county and state, local, federal, Bishop Susan especially as well. So I'm glad to hear that. So I know a lot of people will be glad to hear that as well. In the military, I don't know if you ever did this, Paul, but every now and then we had to take a survey. It was like a stress survey to see where you stood as stress in your life. And if you had a marriage or a death or a divorce or a loss of life, you gained so many points. And if you scored so many points, you were really stressed to the max. And as we look at our lives now, we can sense that happening. We have so much on our plates. School, CCDS, the church reopening, you and your family with what's going on in Jay's life, all of us, we have so many extraneous factors that are affecting our stress level and anxiety. And we also have another one that we're facing at Christ Church. In the middle of transition, we have a search committee that's searching for a new rector. And we have a wonderful search committee, and that's co-chaired by Julie Young and Matt Rich, and several key members from the parish serving on that, doing a wonderful job. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about where we stand there, an update perhaps on the call process.
Sure. It's our trifecta of challenges and committees to meet them. But yes, the call committee is yet another group of amazing people, all-stars that have gotten together to do this. And they've been working since they're first formed back in the late summer, I think, as people know. And it's mostly it appears to be in the background, because so much of what they do has to be kept confidential. They're dealing with people, with candidates in their selection process. But they're making great progress. They, I think, as everyone is watching remembers, we had the learning sessions, listening sessions, right, and the surveys back in the fall and through the winter, produced the Parish Profile, which I'll remind people, if you want to see the Parish Profile, that is on the website. Just go to the church website and hit About Us, and it'll take you down to transition. and the profile describes who we are and what we are, and then the portfolio they produced. Also, I'm talking about late March now. The profile is kind of the job description and the application process that gets posted, and clergy that are looking for a call
Right.
can check that. And so now I can tell you that we've had a number of candidates apply and screened by the diocese, and on hand, and well qualified candidates, as far from what Julie tells me. And so now the process is to begin. They will, over the next few months, be holding a series of interviews, a Zoom interview first, and then beginning to cull that number down to a final 3. That's the goal. Sometime midsummer to get down to that level, and then eventually 1. There's again, the pandemic rears its ugly head. We would normally bring the final candidates to Coronado to meet us and to see who we are and where we are.
Right.
And we would also send members of the committee back to the home parishes of the candidates to meet their people and get a feel for their current home parish. We don't know how that's going to work out with restrictions. We're still hopeful that we'll be able to do that. But either way, we are still on target to have a permanent rector in place by the beginning of Advent. That's kind of our goal, and we're still on track for that. So there is, even though you don't see or hear much about it, Julie sends out updates every 10 days.
Yeah.
It does kind of work in the background, but I assure you it's working, and I'm making very good progress. Although it seems like a very long time since Reverend Ann left,
Yeah.
we're actually doing very well time-wise, considering.
Yeah.
Sure. Having still 2 months short of a year.
Yeah.
More than 2 months, 3 months almost short of a year. It could be a lot longer. It is unfortunately a lot longer for some other places.
Yeah, it's certainly can be a long process depending on what's happening in the life of the church. Christ Church is so healthy, in the community, that the process is very, very streamlined and working wonderfully with the search committee members, Julie and Matt leading that. And we continue to lift all of those members in our thoughts and prayers, because that is a very difficult tasking, and one that creates a lot of stress as you try to narrow down candidates. I think I shared with you and members of the staff, it really is a conflict of interest for me, so I stay detached from the process as best I can. People will ask me questions, and that's fine. But, I think I shared with you, once that posted to the on-site, to the Episcopal website, I started getting all kinds of emails and calls from candidates interested in coming to Christ Church, and I had to politely say, you're a priest, that this is a conflict of interest. I can tell you it's a wonderful church. And then I got kind of tired of them calling and emailing me. So I said, sorry, the position's no longer available. I'm staying. But then I had to be honest and say, no, it's still an ongoing process. Trust the Lord. Let the Lord lead you. Listen to the still small voice of God, and you'll be fine. And but I want to say to Matt and Julie and to all our committee members, and I think you have a vestry liaison. Is it Cheryl? Cheryl's on there as the vestry liaison.
It's Cheryl Jens.
Yeah. What a great group of people, and we know their heart is in the right place. So we continue to think about them and certainly lift them in thought and prayer. Well, Paul, it's certainly been a wonderful pleasure being with you today. I know I speak for all at Christ Church. We are so thankful and blessed by your wonderful leadership as senior warden. You are really a true inspiration to many, and I hear comments all the time, and I don't want to make your head swell too much, but people love you, and I love you and care for you, and it's a joy to always know that I'm in this as interim with you. I couldn't have picked a better partner to tag team with as an interim, and you've made my life and my calling and my job at Christ Church so wonderful. So thank you, Paul, and Thank you for what you do each and every day that goes unnoticed. Appreciate you, my friend, my brother.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. I'm just